Hello, everybody. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk to you about astrology in general, Vedic astrology in particular. And I've been a practicing astrologer for over 30 years now. And I'm also a past president of the Council of Vedic Astrology. I have currently on the faculty at Kepler College. I'm also on the faculty of the American College of Vedic Astrology, and am an all-around neat guy with a doctoral degree in education, master's in business administration, and bachelor of arts in sociology. So I've spent a lot of time in my head behind books, and I'm going to share some expectations for the coming week. Happy Thanksgiving to those of you who are seeing this video this week. It's I'm taping this. I'm recording this rather. The old lexicon, you can tell how old I am when I say taping. I'm recording this on Saturday, November 20th, the day after my father's birthday. And so I miss you, Dad. I love you wherever you are. God bless and hope you're doing well. And let's pull up the chart, see what's going on. I do take astrology students. I do teach astrology. These presentations are only a small sample of the kinds of things I do. Like I said, I have students. I also have, I'm also a Reiki master and a Swami of the Temple of Kriya Yoga. And I've tried to, I'm also a musician, and I am planning on setting up a web page, not a web page, but a YouTube channel on music. Not quite sure what form that'll take, but that'll probably be sometime next year. I'm also planning on doing some more online work educationally for all you fine folks out there. But like I said, this is really not an entire projection of what I do or what I'm capable of. It's just really a way of sharing, as one of my students put it, a weather forecast for the week. So for those of you who do like what I'm doing, please click the like button, share it with people. If you like it and you see me and you want to see more of me, please share this with your friends. Please feel free to join this group, as I am planning on expanding in other directions, such as doing more remedial measures. I'll also be doing a broadcast with Lolita Donatello Rebecca by the end of the week, in which we'll be talking about what 2022 has in store for us. So that should be exciting. I always like working with Lolita. She's a ray of sunshine in this otherwise dark and gloomy world. But it is a good world, you know, so I just want to encourage everybody. It's the time of year when we are encouraged to be grateful. You know, it's Thanksgiving. It's the time when the crops were taken in the new world, and where we shared resources. And I can't say honestly that the sharing of resources has always been so generous, but that's the way of the world. I'm not here to criticize anybody. I also want to encourage you. One of the primary things that most people are encouraged to do is to be grateful for what you have. If you're grateful for what you have, it's a no-lose situation. If you're grateful for what you have, you'll be happy. If you're happy, you'll attract more abundance. If you attract more abundance, you'll be more happy. So it sort of builds on itself. So keep in mind the law the law that like attracts like. That really doesn't work with magnets, but it works in in spiritual life, and it works. So let's say if you want to attract more positive people into your life, you have to be more positive. If you want to attract more growth into your life, you have to be willing to grow and learn and expand and help people, versus just being grumpy and saying, "Oh, nobody knows anything. I know everything." I think one of the most important lessons I've learned in life, and it doesn't mean I always practice it, but I do. I definitely do. It definitely is something I've learned, is that if you go into things with a more or less positive attitude, people react positively. Um, there'll always be people who do less than you who will be jealous of you. There'll always be people who won't be happy no matter how well they're treated. And to be honest with you, that's not your problem. You have to do the best you can with what you have, and from that stage, move forward. That having been said, so like I said, big things coming up in 2022. I don't have the secure space that I need in order to set up a permanent facility, but I will have that in 2022, early 2022. And these will look different. They'll be more animated, more better quality, I would say. The instructor's quality is always magnificent, so I can't I can't deny that. But basically, anybody who knows me knows I tend to not really take myself. Trying to think of the right way to put it. I don't think I know more than I know. Let's put it that way. And even the things I don't know perfectly. But I think that actually helps, because then I'm willing to learn. All right, so let's go on with the chart. Let's look at the chart and see what the chart is saying to us this week. This is based upon Indian astrology. So essentially, if we look at astrology as a discipline, we have several forms. We have Mayan astrology, Chinese astrology. This is astrology based out of India. I usually pepper a few things in that are from other astrological systems, but I try not to mix and match too much, because then it gets confusing. And also, every astrological system I've seen is really built to be a self-contained unit. It doesn't mean you can't pick and add on when the combinations seem to make sense. So I'm not ruling that out. But essentially, many of these systems of astrology were built as self-contained systems. There's that doesn't mean you can't add on. What I'm doing and looking at astrocartography maps is definitely an add-on to Hindu astrology. They had locational astrology, but it didn't look like that back in ancient times and even in modern times. But it didn't look like the actual locality maps. And essentially that was developed, I think, around 50 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And I use that as a reference point because it seems to work pretty well. All right, so what we have right now is, in this chart, this where the rising sign is in Taurus right now, is we have a Rahu moon conjunction. We just recently came out of a lunar eclipse. So lunar eclipses are actually pretty interesting. They're destabilizing, deregulating kinds of events. So sometimes what happens out of a lunar eclipse, especially if Rahu causes a lunar eclipse, but Rahu's the north lunar node. It swallows up the moon. K2 is the south lunar node. It swallows up the sun. That's how we get eclipses. And Rahu right now is is in a position, which is again another 20th century invention, called stationary direct. Okay, so usually in traditional Indian astrology, the astrologers will use what's called the average motion of the moon, which is essentially the mean notion. There was a development, I believe, in the 1960s or 70s by a fellow named Michael Erlewine, I believe, that essentially said, well, if you allow for retrogrades of the lunar nodes, you'll get a more precise measurement. I found this to be true. I've used them ever since I've used astrology, and you can use the mean nodes. It doesn't really matter in terms of the overall interpretation of the chart. But usually when these nodes go direct, you have a big event take place, okay? And we had a very controversial trial found in the United States recently. We also had the passage of a big bill in the United States. So those are big events. Those are pent-up energy that has to be released, and they both mark, to a certain extent, turning points in the United States. Now, whether that's going to manifest negatively or positively is anybody's guess, but they do mark turning points. But the nodes stationary direct, they were stationary direct when the 9/11 attacks occurred. They were stationary direct when we had an outbreak when we had the COVID outbreaks really starting to take place. The stationary direct only lasts for a few days. It doesn't last more than like around 3 or 4 days maximum. And right now, K2's with the sun and Rahu's with the moon. You can see that from the chart. The lunar eclipse was yesterday, so the moon and Rahu would have been right on top of each other. And I think this one actually indicates a public mood change. We're seeing sort of a change in the public mood. Some people are angry about what happened yesterday. Some people are happy about what happened yesterday. This is kind of to be expected. So both sides didn't get what they wanted fully, right? So, but I find it interesting that the construction project, because we had the Rahu Moon combination here, that's more connected with that. And I also find it interesting that Jupiter entered Aquarius. It came out of its debilitation sign and entered Aquarius on today. And essentially that will push reform movements forward. It'll push medicine forward. It'll push. So I heard on the radio there was a push for approval of of a pill for, I think it was for a pill for vaccinations. So you'll see over the next couple of months a lot more aggressive action taken in terms of trying to really wipe out the COVID epidemic and trying to control it. So that's actually, and as opposed to the events which happened when Jupiter was in Capricorn, where nothing seems to be really working that well, you'll start to see actually some of the effects or some of the solutions come up fairly quickly, like within the next 4 to 5 months. So that's reason for some optimism. I think overall, I'm going to be honest with you, I've been overly optimistic about when this thing would tamp down, but I think we're seeing over the next 3 to 4 months essentially a good tamping down. I know a fellow astrologer expects to see an increase in cases, probably when Mars and K2 can join. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. We're talking about COVID now. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen because K2 didn't cause COVID. K2 wasn't really the cause of COVID. It was really or the COVID spread. It was usually so. This is going to put me at odds with a lot of astrologers, but I don't care. You know, you have to say what you see. And I've traced. I've gone back really to the pandemics of, oh gosh, maybe the past 100 years, and it tends to be so. So something will happen. So K2 will trigger something. K2 is in charge of illnesses and things being taken away. But I've also seen Jupiter and Mars aspects encouraging spreads more quickly or fast spreads. One of the nice things about this combination is, although Jupiter and Mars, Jupiter is aspecting Mars, that aspect will only take place for about another 20 days or so. So you might get a spurt in early December, but I think after that, and as a matter of fact, Jupiter won't be aspecting Mars. Let me see now what the degree is. Yeah, Jupiter won't be aspecting Mars after around 20 days. So I don't think, and Jupiter's not really in a sign where we're going to be stupid about how we react to it. The Capricorn placement of Jupiter tends to help us make what I would call stupid or controlling decisions. And Jupiter in Aquarius tends to give a little bit of a bounce up. It's coming out of its worst debilitation placement, and it allows us to get a little bit smarter. So even if there is a bump up in December, it'll be relatively quickly handled. The other thing is, we're in a full moon right now, so there's usually when this happens, there's some opposition between government and the people. The government is really, not saying this to be nasty, the government is really being kind of, it doesn't have any direction right now. And that's been going on for really about the past couple of months. And that's really not a function of any particular administration. It would be true whoever was in power. But basically, the sun was debilitated up until around 5 days ago. It was weak. Now it's getting a little bit aggressive, a little bit, but it's also being a little bit stupid because it's with K2, and K2 eclipses the sun. So you'll see a variety of what I would call ill-advised government actions over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And also in certain parts of the world, you'll see certain governments toppled. Okay. So I'm not necessarily saying in the United States, but basically this is a very vulnerable time for governments, you know, so you may even see revolutions or coups happening in various parts of the world, especially throughout December. But unlike some people out there who are predicting things, I'm not seeing a major war starting. I'm not seeing the combinations, the Mahadishas aren't right for it. The major planetary periods, those we judge from the moon. And I don't think we're really going to see a major war until around, let me see now, 15 years. 15, about 30 years from now, really, to be honest. You know, I think we'll see conflicts. That's not, you know, that doesn't mean no conflicts, but it's going to be a while before we see a major conflict. The other thing is, inflationary pressure will probably continue over the next few months. Really, I would say until at least April or May of next year. And I think what I'm most worried about right now is these cycles tend to be a little bit self-perpetuating. I've lived through a few inflationary cycles, and they tend to go through. But you'll see what I would call, when Jupiter enters Pisces, you'll see kind of a, not really a collapse, but more of a stabilizing effect on the economy, which that'll happen around May to June of next year. And also Saturn will change signs and go into Aquarius just shortly before that. So you'll see more emphasis on science, more emphasis on humanitarian efforts, more emphasis on discipline. It's interesting because although Capricorn is more often associated with Saturn, and Aquarius is associated as being this kind of a humanitarian sign, Saturn actually gains strength when it goes into Aquarius. Aquarius is his preferred sign in Vedic astrology. So it actually has more impact when it's in Aquarius than it does when it's in Capricorn, strangely enough. So you'll start to see people starting to make structural changes, or trying to make structural changes, and overall more emphasis on helping the poor or the needy over the next couple of years in the economy, but also a lot of concrete technological innovation. So a lot of the focus over the past couple of years has been on essentially trying to stabilize and calm down the country while it went through this very disruptive period, and the world for that matter. And then when it goes into Aquarius, there'll be bold new attempts to make changes to improve things for people. So there'll be a lot of innovation. I would say a lot of business growth, a lot of new business enterprises, but that's setting up for about 5 years down the road for a lot of business collapses. But that's the way these cycles tend to run. So essentially nothing really to worry about in terms of economic instability until around 2026 or so, 2025, 2026. But again, inflation is an issue. It'll be a bit like, for those of you who remember, it'll be a bit like the late 90s. So you'll have a lot of optimism, a lot of expansion, a lot of emphasis on social progress. And then around 2000, you'll see this, what I would call this, around 2025, you'll see this conservative swing backward. That doesn't necessarily mean that the Republicans in the United States won't control more seats. In 2022, they certainly will. There's a chance a Republican will win the presidency, but the overall social trend in the country will still tend to be more liberal or more reform oriented. But I think you're going to see a lot of reforms over the next 4 years. The other thing is, if you have so this combination is interesting in terms of racial justice politics. I really don't feel qualified to go there in terms of astrology, but again, these are combinations which are relatively close to what we saw in the 60s too. So there'll be a lot of emphasis on that, and there will be progress made, of course. So we never go through any change where there isn't some kind of a step forward, but I've never seen a social change occur where there hasn't been a step forward, then maybe 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I tend to be an optimist, so if we get social change, it'll go forward a little bit, then there'll be a reactionary period, then a forward, then a reactionary period. That's the way things seem to happen, at least in this country. So if we're looking at the chart of the Rahu moon, a lot of people are worried about the future right now. They're a little bit worried about what is happening in their own individual countries in terms of security, stability, money. Venus is in Sagittarius. People want to fight for what's right. That includes both sides. Okay, so both sides of the political spectrum want to fight for what's right. There's a Mars-Mercury conjunction, though, and there is a lot of lying going on out there. Okay, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. A lot of people are manipulating other people right now. That's, sort of like par for the course. Mercury will leave Libra, though, in about a day. So it's by the time you see this, Mercury will already be in Scorpio, and that will give some communication problems, some subversive activities, and also a lot more emphasis on spying and checking out and checking on people around the world. You may even see some media outlets start to get investigated a little bit, although covertly at first. And also, it's not going to really end the trend towards misrepresentation, because essentially Mercury and K2 combinations tend to make up stories out of whole cloth. They'll just embellish things, and then Mars will be in that sign within about a week and a half. So we can expect a good dose of misrepresentation really through early January. And like I said, it's not just one side or the other. It's really all sides giving us essentially half stories. Okay, just to move a political agenda forward. So it's just take everything in. My advice, as I try to present myself as neutral a party as I possibly can. I'm not a neutral party, but I try to be fair-minded. I have a strong Libra. I try to look at all sides of a picture, and essentially look at both at all the arguments you're seeing, and retain a certain skepticism towards what you're being told. Okay, it doesn't mean ignore it. You can't ignore it. Okay, but try to reserve judgment. So if somebody tells you they have absolute proof of this or this or this, then just say, okay, fine, because eventually the truth does come out, and a lot of it will come out in January. But over the next couple of months, just because of the planetary transits, it's not true. There'll be more attempts to cover up things. And like I said, that's true of both sides. It's not one party or another, not one faction or another. People will be tempted to lie. Okay, and it'll be for political advantage. All right, so the next point I want to get to in terms of the general map is I am very happy about Jupiter being in Aquarius, so that's really a nice combination. Venus will be in Sagittarius, so we'll have these very high ideals for about another 2 weeks or so. Then Venus will enter the sign of Capricorn, which will make us more practical, more frugal, more conservative spending wise, things like that. And also more careful relationship wise. Venus and Sagittarius will tend to make us trust relationship partners. Will make us somewhat impulsive in relationships. We'll think we found the perfect mate. But again, I wouldn't really even relationships, just not a good time for relationships with with a lot of the line combinations going on. Not really clear until early January. Okay. So this is if you want somebody who's going to be honest with you and truthful with you. Every chart is different, so this may not affect your chart as much as it does other people's charts. But certain signs will be more vulnerable than others. So let's look at, I'm really running out of time. I think I spoke a little bit too much about that. So if we're looking at problem areas around the world, Jupiter's just entering, it's just about to affect the West Coast, and there's a Jupiter-Moon conjunction. So essentially, that will give some anxiety to people around the world. Saturn line is close to Hawaii. That'll give some natural problems with natural catastrophes, especially near the Big Island and pretty much throughout Hawaii. And if we go over here, we have a Moon-Jupiter combination going up through west, approaching the West Coast. So the West Coast should calm down a little bit over the next few weeks. Venus line is running straight through North Dakota, South Dakota, down to Texas and Mexico. So that will calm down that part of the world, although there will be, I would say, some border conflicts between Mexico and Texas. And there's a descending Mars line, Mars, Saturn, Sun. Ooh, Washington looks like a bloody mess. Washington, Delaware, and New Jersey look kind of challenged. So if you're in that part of the world, there's going to be a lot of fighting, a lot of anger down there. So just be careful. Also, this goes a little bit to the west. I'm not crazy when I see planets cluster up in signs. I don't think it's a good effect. So it clustered up a little bit in Libra, but there's going to be a bigger cluster in Scorpio pretty soon. So like I said, watch out for underhanded tricks or sneaky revelations coming out from the past. Also, Cuba is a little bit in danger from fighting, maybe even from anti-government efforts. Yeah, so is Colombia. Yeah, so is Peru. Chile, not quite so much, but it does have its fair share of problems. Look at this with Brazil still not really addressing the problems they're having all that well. Rahu's over pretty much close to Rio. And Mercury, I'll give some bad communication between actors. And Moon is out towards the eastern side of Brazil. So that's going to give some public discomfort. Venus is hitting the tip of Africa, or the western tip of Africa. That will essentially give some problems with governments there. We have a Saturn line passing close to Ireland, but straight through Spain and straight through Central Africa, all the way down to South Africa. So that part of the world is going to have some economic problems, some serious economic problems. We do have a descending Jupiter line running through Algeria and through next to Egypt. So that part of the world should be doing a little bit better. And there's also something going through Turkey, which I can't quite see. We have a sun line going through the middle of Turkey, a Mercury line running through, running close to Turkey. So I think there's going to be, if not a change, at least an upset in government over there. You know, so some people will retain power, other people will lose power in Turkey. So I think you're going to see a bit of a governmental shift over the next few weeks. The same is true in Eastern Europe. You'll see certain regimes come up, and there is a bit of a panic in Eastern Europe. You may not be aware of it, but there are Belarus. There's a Belarus refugee problem in Eastern Europe, and some people have been discussing a wall in the European Union. That seems to have settled down a little bit. That seems to have calmed down a little bit. That Jupiter line will help out with that. Moon is over Saudi Arabia, so there'll probably be some political scandal in Saudi Arabia too. And also some economic problems as well, although Saudi Arabia is pretty rich. Venus line is passing through India. It's good for the health in Venus. They'll essentially have a reprieve. There'll be a little bit of a slide back in around 10 days from now when Venus is in the same sign with Saturn. But essentially, I think India is going to do pretty well over the next couple of months. And so there'll be, like I said, a little bit of a setback around 30 days from now. And that'll continue really for about a month, and then things will hit more equilibrium. And Mars is going through, who's going through China, so some anger or some military action in Vietnam, possibly Indonesia, Philippines, some violence in Philippines and Japan, and Rahu line passing through Australia. Parts of Australia, depending on where you are in Australia, you'll experience this. So there's a lot of public anxiety in Western Australia, it looks like, Western Southern Australia, but Eastern Australia looks pretty placid and pretty calm right now. And we have a Jupiter line passing through New Zealand. So New Zealand has been fairly well blessed during the entire pandemic. It's been the luck of the planets, not the luck of the politics. But I'm not putting down the political leader. I'm just saying the planets have been relatively favorable to New Zealand over the past year. There has been an uptick, from what I understand, in financial and health problems there recently, but I don't think it'll be long-lived. All right, so let's go back to so let's summarize. All right, so some panic in Middle Turkey, okay, and possibly some earthquakes. Again, a little bit to the east of Istanbul, not right on Istanbul. There was an earthquake there this past week. We're in roughly the same area that we're looking at, and some possibility of some natural catastrophes or violence in East Coast United States, even near Florida and throughout the heartland, Tennessee, Kentucky, and I believe that's Illinois and Michigan. And this Venus line, like I said, some problems with disputes. It'll be more placid. Texas will be more placid. But all right, so sorry for the interruption. Okay, so we have problem areas as far as I can see. Hawaiian Islands, the East Coast of the United States, Cuba, Haiti, San Domingo, maybe Puerto Rico, Brazil, definitely, and some economic problems in Africa, up through Spain and into England and Ireland and maybe France, and some fighting in Italy, maybe some volcanic activity in Italy, Norway, Eastern Europe, and some political upheaval in Greece, Turkey, and some change of government, maybe in Turkey or just to the north in Cyprus. And let's see now. And some panic in Egypt as well. I didn't mention that before. Finally, the moon over Saudi Arabia, so some political scandals over Saudi Arabia. India looks okay, at least temporarily, and there'll be some kind of economic crisis or political scandal in Philippines, Japan, China. And Australia is largely left, except for certain regions, alone. New Zealand is definitely left alone. Now let's look at the actual signs for this week. I will get some editing software that should avoid problems like I just had, but those interruptions do come up. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to getting when I'm finally settled in. All right, so we have for Aries, a lot of a lot of economic uncertainty. They're making money, but they want to make more. That's been pretty consistent. But they'll also be anxious about home life, and relationship life. They'll have a lot of concern about whether or not relationship partners are being truthful or honest with them, and to a certain extent, they won't be honest with them. But their financial luck will be good. Their career luck will be good. Gains will be good. As a matter of fact, they'll gain new friendships this year over the next few months. Increase in status. Moon is in Taurus, along with Rahu, and that again presents some problems in relationship life. This sign is going to be under a lot of stress over the next month and a half. This is May 15th to June 15th. And you'll see a lot of potential problems with health. Also, at least from the chart, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Relationship life, as we said before. So this sign will seem very attractive, physically attractive. Luck will be generally good, but slow moving, and career life will start to expand a lot for this sign over the next few months. For Gemini, Gemini has problems with telling the truth, or there's some problems with love affairs for Gemini. Some problems even in terms of politics. We're getting along with other people. The second house Lord is in the 12th house, so again, they're spending a lot of money on not on pointless things, but on things to make them look better. That's really one of the indications of this particular placement. And it's kind of a stressful time for them. Health issues seem to be strong for them, and probably will be until mid-December. Relationship opportunities are strong for this sign, but again, there's a little bit of a problem in terms of relationship partners' financial success. Luck is generally good for Gemini. It'll be very, very good over the next year. Cancer has good gains, good financial gains, but friends will be around the sign mainly. So it'll be surrounded by famous friends, but what I would call unfaithful or erratic friendships. But it will at least feel good for the time being. Sun is in the 5th house, so there'll be a lot of focus on children and children's health, and some worry about that. Home life will be a little bit tormented, a little bit edgy, on edge, and again, like I said, worry about relationship life is strong for almost every sign this month. Saturn's in the 7th house, so relationship partner, person will stick with a relationship partner, but I think they'll probably change relationship partners next May or so. And there'll be a lot of pressure for them to do that. Jupiter's in the 8th house, so they'll start to attract a lot of attention from admirers. And finally, financial gains are indicated for Cancer. For Leo, Leo has some confusion over goals and home life, some dissatisfaction with home life, some dissatisfaction with career, but they will achieve a great deal of recognition career-wise. For In terms of, they'll be very skilled. So politically, Leos are going to do extremely well. They'll have a strong political presence, and they'll attract many admirers and maybe even new relationships partners, new long-term relationship partners. But there will be a few problems with financial success. The other indication here is that Leos will have a great deal of career success so this month, but they won't be quite satisfied with it. For Virgos, Virgo has good negotiating skills, good reasoning skills, but again, you can't really trust what they say. It's a little bit, and they'll have to be careful with money because there's a tendency for their ambitions to outweigh their means. Also, it looks like expenditures on home are indicated, but home life looks actually pretty nice for the time being for this sign. The other thing is their confidence will be a little bit low this month, but their energy levels will go up over the next couple of weeks, so that's good. The other thing is that they'll have to watch out that they don't get into accidents or cause problems for themselves health-wise. The other thing is Jupiter's in the 6th house. They'll be opposed by people who have in groups or organizations. And 7th house Lord of the 7th house is Jupiter. There'll be some antagonism in terms of relationships, or relationship goals won't be met. Career-wise, they'll do pretty well. They'll have a lot of lucky opportunities. Some of the opportunities will be fairly fleeting, so they're going to have to grab them pretty quickly. But overall, not a bad month, not a bad week for Virgo, excuse me. Libra has, let's see now, Mercury and Mars in the 1st house. That creates what's called Adana, or wealth-producing yoga for Libra rising or sun. So that's actually good, but they will have problems with friendships. They won't know which friends to believe or which friends to trust. That'll persist throughout the entire month, really through next December. And friends will be either betray them or not be helpful to them. Venus is in the 3rd house. The sun is very diplomatic this month. It's very helpful for it in terms of fulfilling its aspirations. It'll be very artistic, and it's a good time to study art or music or any kind of those, any types of those disciplines. Saturn's in the 4th house. It blocks the ability to go back to school, but Jupiter in the 5th house, person will be learning a lot. These individuals will be learning a lot this month, and the luck will be generally very, very good. In terms of financial gains, they will experience some financial gains. Jupiter's Lord of the 7th house. They may actually get approached romantically by people that they don't know, and they'll seem to be kind of mysterious or kind of exotic to a lot of people. The moon and Rahu being in the 6th house is actually good for exploring, for doing background checks or research. So that's not a bad placement, actually, in all honesty. And career-wise, they'll probably do pretty well, but again, there'll be some arguments or some disruptions or some disagreements about money career-wise. For Scorpio, Scorpio has Sun K2 combination in the 1st house. K2 is actually pretty well placed. And Scorpio, there is an exemption for the Sun as ruler of the 9th house being a positive planet for Scorpio being placed in the 1st house. That was a long way of saying the Sun being in Scorpio isn't necessarily lucky for Scorpios, because it actually shines a light on a lot of the activities they're doing, and they prefer to function in secret or behind the door. It'll be a particularly difficult month for President Biden. The next 3 months will be. But Venus in the second house, they'll protect them a little bit. They'll protect Scorpios a lot over the next few months. Saturn's in the third house, they'll make them very stubborn. Jupiter's in the fourth house, they'll give them a certain amount of luck and status. Relationship-wise, relationship partner will seem to have a lot of extra presence and a lot of extra say in the person's life, but they won't be happy with a relationship life. And if we go to the 12th house, there'll be a lot of expenditures, a lot of loss of fame and reputation for Scorpios, unfortunately. That'll shift after around 2 weeks. So you'll start to see Scorpio start to get a little bit better public image, but it's really not a good time for them public image wise. They'll make money, which is fine. That's really not. And since they prefer to do things behind the scenes, it's not such a bad thing for them. Venus is in Sagittarius. This means there's a lot of ambition and love. It's good for financial gains for this sign. Venus is also the lord of the 6th house, so they're going to be more prone to diseases and illnesses than normal, but financial gains will be good. The 3rd house is Jupiter. 2nd house has Saturn in it. Jupiter in the 3rd house. As for Libra, this sign will do very well diplomatically. It'll do just fine diplomatically. As a matter of fact, it'll seem to be the wisest sign of them all, at least for this month. And as a matter of fact, for quite a few months. But it'll seem to be very stern and very controlling. So this is the United States rising sign, so that indicates we will have some tighter government controls, not looser ones. The other planets, so we have a good yoga for career success, or a good combination for career success and for relationship success, but also you'll have to watch out for friends lying to you or friends misrepresenting the truth to you over the next month. And again, confidence levels will be low. For Capricorn, we have Capricorn has Jupiter in the 2nd house, Sri Lagna, which is an indicator of wealth, in the 3rd house. So that gives a strong desire for money. And Saturn's in the 1st house, so Capricorn will still be essentially what I would call the ruler of the chart. It's essentially a planet in its own sign that's considered to be very good. It's considered to be very powerful. So it's Sash Yoga. There's about 5 years of Sash Yoga we'll be encountering with Saturn just leaving Capricorn next year and entering Aquarius for another 2.5 years. The society will seem kind of tightly controlled. Most societies will seem to be. That'll dissipate quite a bit when Saturn goes into Pisces around 2023. 2024, excuse me. And overall, the chart is good for Capricorn. Jupiter's in the 2nd house. Will start to give it monetary opportunities. Moon is in the 4th house. It'll give it increased status, although it will only be for sure while. Mercury is in and Mars are in the 10th house. So this is good for career life. But again, they'll have to watch for career betrayals and having to do things too quickly. And again, some untrustworthiness among friendships. Venus is in the 12th house, not bad. It's good for saving money. Now, Aquarius is finally getting some good news. The Lord is still in the 12th house, so it'll still have to spend money, but it'll get a lot more financial opportunities because of Venus being in the 11th house and Jupiter as Lord of the 11th, and the 2nd house, sits in the 1st. So it'll actually get financial gains and some increase in status with Rahu passing over and Sun, Mars, and Mercury passing over into Scorpio. So this period where it seems to have gone unnoticed or considered to be unessential, that will pass within about a month's time. And you'll actually start to see improvements in the sign status this week coming up. So this looks like a good time, the start of a good transit for Aquarius over the next 6 to 7 months. And Saturn will enter Aquarius next year, around May of next year. That'll be a good time for Aquarius as well. It'll give it a lot more authority and a lot more responsibility. Pisces, finally, Rahu and Moon in the third house, ambition for financial luck and love affairs. Some deceit in relationship life, some problems with bosses, but career life is actually kind of sweet, kind of nice. And Jupiter in the 12th house is very good for financial gains and for saving money. So that's it in a nutshell. I'd like to thank everybody who subscribed so far. I'd like to get more subscribers. I'm trying to build up to 1,000. I know it's a long haul, and I know we'll get there. The Minutes Watch is building up fine. And again, keep in mind, book, school, readings, individual lessons, they're all available directly from me. Or you can employ my services through Daira Academy, American College of Vedic Astrology, where I'm one of the instructors, or through Kepler, where I'm one of the Vedic astrology instructors, Kepler College. So that's it for this week. I'd like to say namaste, be grateful for what you have, and more will come your way. Thank you, and have a great Thanksgiving, folks. Bye-bye, everybody.